This is the Kpopcast, and on this episode, we talk about subversive K-pop artists and give some subversive K-pop song recommendations with those artists. And we dive into the women's fiction K-pop novel for grown-ups by Virginia Duan, Illusive. We talk about different aspects of it. So we've got a front end for non-spoilers, and then if you've actually read the novel, you can dive into the latter half where we dive into spoiler-rich territory. But yeah, thank you, Virginia and Michaela, for having this conversation on the Kpopcast. I don't know if there's anything you want to call it or share in the upfront here.
Well, thank you for having me, everyone. I'm Virginia, the author, I guess, of Illusive.
I should have said that. Yeah. And we've got the author of Illusive right here.
And for people that don't know, Virginia is a writer, and she writes stories full of rage and grief with biting humor and glimpses of grace, based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and she lives with her husband and 5 children. Anything else you want to add to your K-pop profile?
No, that's fine. That sounds good. I feel like I talked a lot.
Why don't Virginia appear on the kpopprofiles.com website?
And yeah, so we're going to get into talking about your book. But because specifically the main character of your book, Kate, is such a subversive K-pop idol in the book, we wanted to share our favorite subversive solo artists in the real world of K-pop.
Hey, but before we get into those topics, don't forget to join us on the Kpopcast listener fam on Slack. A link to that in the episode description, as well as a link to chip in for editing costs to our Ko-Fi link.
I'm Virginia.
I'm DJ Peter Lowe.
And I'm your PDM Michaela, and hit replays are usually K-pop song recommendations of the week. But
these are still K-pop song recommendations.
Well, yeah, usually, but we try to think of like things that have just come out. But as we said at the top of the show, these are our subversive K-pop solo artist hit replays. And I do want to quick shout out to Joe. When we first posed this topic in our Slack, he mentioned that subversive K-pop is kind of an oxymoron. So however we interpret this version of subversive, or subversive within the range of what K-pop actually is how we've approached this hit replay for today. So kick us off, Virginia. What is your subversive hit replay for this week?
Mine is BB's Vengeance. I know Peter's chosen it before as a hit replay.
Oh, yes. Talking about multiple times.
For good reason.
Yeah. And I just love BB. Vengeance is the title track off of BB's debut studio album, Low Life Princess Noir. It's firmly in the pop genre. It's about confronting someone who has betrayed them and showing mercy, but not really. So some facts about BB. She was born Kim Hyung-so and is a South Korean singer, rapper, songwriter, and actress. She signed to Feel Good Music, and she first appeared in 2018 on The Fan and became the runner-up of the show. In 2022, she released her first studio album, Low Life Princess Noir. And as an actress, BB is well known for her lead roles in the film Hopeless, which was in 2023, and television series such as The Worst of Evil, which was also in 2023.
Where she gets to live out this concept over and over again as a mafia boss in the show. Oh my God.
On Friday, Virginia, we were talking about subversive artists.
Oh, okay.
And we were like, which song did Virginia pick? And like we were saying, like the BB one where she's a mafia boss, like which one? Because BB's been doing this for a few songs now, and so anyway.
Well, to be fair, I think I chose Animal Farm first, but then I realized the hook I was hearing in my head was actually Vengeance. Yeah, because I'm a bad bitch. Yeah. So yeah, the song and video are just so badass, and the hook is so catchy, and she's a gangster boss bitch, and she's hot and she's cool, and I just want to be her. And it's a good song.
That should be her next like single, "Gangster Boss Bitch." Like that's the name of it. Like.
So yeah, sorry. That's all I have to say.
No, this is like BB is definitely one of those people. Like if you think of like specifically solo artists in K-pop who can fall into that subversive genre, like she has definitely done that in everything that she's approached with her music and across different spaces of like genre too. She's not just one thing. She's able to do it in multiple different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like when talking about, what is it? The soft jelly candy?
Bangyang.
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 Subversive even that, I guess. Maybe? I don't know. Okay. Anything else we want to say about BB and Vengeance?
I mean, I don't know if she personally is subversive. You know what I mean? Like, but I feel like her persona is pretty subversive,
yeah,
right. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't follow her as a stan, if that makes sense. I just follow her music, but she strikes me as someone who has a particular creative vision and doesn't care if she goes. I mean, she can go wholesome, but she really, really kills, pun intended, the femme fatale sort of
totally
thing.
Yeah, and she is definitely disruptive in the sense of like just the origin of her career coming from a small label. Feel Good Music has the reputation of like Tiger, JK, and Tasha, but you know that's their own thing. So for her to actually come out from a small label and like make her own lane in the industry and become as popular as she is, like and like performing at Coachella and doing all these other international things, even outside of the realm of K-pop, like it's just awesome.
I agree on her creative uniqueness and endeavor. But her album, like Life is a Bitch, like that, I just loved all the concepts behind that album. Such that we hotly debated it on one of our year-end episodes, and you guys overruled me, but whatever.
Okay. Peter, what is your subversive pick then for this week?
By the way, right before I dive into my pick, I just wanted to say that when, Michaela, you were describing like what, you know, subversive for K-pop and subversive in the world of K-pop being like, you know, do you want pink hair or red hair? I was thinking like red lip, no. High heels, no. You know, the CLC song.
Pour it out
that
for
was
CLC.
Subversive for K-pop standards. But anyway, and it was so ironic because they were saying like, well, it just means we can still wear these things. And anyway,
we can choose, but we're actually going to do them anyway.
Yeah, it was a little silly. That was subversive for K-pop standards. But actually, a song and artist who I wanted to say is legitimately subversive is Psyopa. or Psy. I guess what, as a male, I'm not supposed to say Opa, but
You can call him Opa.
It's pride.
Okay. Oh, yeah, like in a daddy sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Or like as a top or bottom. So Psy. Oh, so my song by Psy is Gangnam Style.
Of course, because you can't like it. Yes.
오빤 강남 스타일 강남 스타일 오빤 강남 스타일 강남 스타일 오빤 강남 스타일 Hey sexy lady 오빤 강남 스타일 Hey sexy lady
So a lot of people, when they heard Gangnam Style, it was famous for being a joke. And like it had like it went through like the Western interpretation of like, what the hell am I watching sort of thing, and that's what made it viral. But if you peel back that like cheesy veneer of a guy dancing on boats and explosions happening behind him, it actually has like some really like subversive storytelling elements to it. It's a critique on the capitalistic consumer lifestyle as shown in the district of Gangnam, and how you're trying to show face and like for what end And so it's really Psy sort of critiquing a lot of that this is just empty and shallow and silly and ridiculous. It's almost like Dada art. So like I think that was really subversive. And he did a bunch of other funny stuff, which is why I like him, because so much of K-pop is, especially in that like late Gen 2, early Gen 3 era, it was littered with like beautiful boys and girls. And then meanwhile, you got this fat dancing guy coming in, just blowing up on the scene. I thought that was disruptive, and I could get behind it because like I didn't care. Yes, nice abs and faces are nice to look at, but like having a fat guy dance and sing along, it was refreshing for me as a K-pop fan at that time. So for that reason, it was my hit replay. Oh, and by the way, if you didn't already know, Psy, he came from just to give like the quick Wikipedia article on him. We all know Psy. He blew up in the Western field on 2012, but before that point, he had been doing a lot of like satirizing and comedic songs. And he actually comes from a quite affluent background.
Oh,
so he was born into Gangnam.
Yeah.
So like he really knows what he's talking about.
Nice.
And I think his family, so his dad is the executive chairman of the DI Corporation. It's like a semiconductor manufacturing company. And semiconductors are really big in South Korea, and manufacturing semiconductors. Just look at SK Hynix and Samsung. They're like one of the leaders right now, next to TSMC. But anyway, so that's I don't want to talk too long, but that's my subversive hit replay.
did you want us to chime in?
If you have any comments, we could just move on.
This is the song that put K-pop on my radar
in 2012.
Yeah, and then one of my really good friends actually looks exactly like Psy. So he would dress up as Psy every Halloween and would like have his little kids and his ex-wife at the time dress up as characters in the MV, and it was great. But that's all I knew about K-pop until 2018.
2018, and then it was what your boys of BTS at that point?
No, it was actually EXO.
Oh, wow. You were in XOL before you were in ARMY?
No. I was looking for Mando Pop. And XOL.
XOM.
EXO has XOM, right? And so that's how I got sucked in. And the algorithm did its work. And then I got sucked into BTS.
Yeah, that's surprising because XOLs and ARMYs are like mortal enemies.
Oh, well. I mean, I just listened to music. I didn't know anything about fandoms or anything at the time, right? So I just thought like this music is great. So and I like the visuals. So yeah.
All right, Michaela with the best subversive hit replay.
All right. So we've been time traveling a little bit. So we started with BB in 2022, Psy with 2012. Now I'm gonna take you guys back to the summer of 2003 with the it girl at the time, Lee Hyori, and her song 10 Minutes.
Just want 10 minutes, 내가 시대는 시간, 순진한 내 속에 속아오는 남자들, baby 다른 매력에 흔들리고 있잖아, 용기 내봐 다가와 날 가질 수도 있잖아.
I feel like a lot of people, even like non-K-pop fans, have probably heard the song at this point. Like it was trending on beauty TikToks for people trying to do like early 2000s Y2K makeup, like and which is so funny to me because like when I think of Lee Hyori, like one of the first like subversive things about her, that or at least when I was first introduced to her, was the fact that she would be going on TV and broadcast without makeup. Like that was like
she
one
was
of
just so unnaturally beautiful.
Yeah, I mean she kind of has the pretty privilege to back it up. Like she's obviously gorgeous with and without makeup, but it was always so interesting to first be introduced to her from that standpoint of like how she approached the industry so differently. So for the people who have no idea who Lee Hyori is, which is probably a lot of people still, because she's not as active as like a K-pop artist. She's mostly like an MC and does, variety and things like that. So Lee Hyori was originally a part of the first gen girl group Finkel, which debuted under DSP back in 1998. So Finkel, for you guys that don't know, stands for Finn Killing Liberty. So they're gonna Finn as in like to the end of killing liberty, girls who are going to put an end to the killing of liberties and things like that. So they already kind of like, she already comes from a group that kind of has that Les Seraphim vibe. Like you could compare it to today of people who are trying to be a little bit more against the standard or against oppressive forces within like the industry. But the group itself was still like very bright, very cute, very like, you could compare like Finkel to like, like the new jeans of today, like very youthful images. So when they disbanded in 2002 and she debuted as a solo artist in 2003, she really shook up the space because she came out and she started this thing called the Lee Hyori syndrome, literally, because she was so different from all of her peers, especially the peers that were coming out in 2003. So you think back in 2003, there's Boa was in her Atlantis Princess phase, and then you had SES members who were from SM Entertainment, that girl group, Bada and Hee Jin also debuted as solo artists. But they still kind of have those, not, it's a cuter, more Disney, like, let's just have fun and party, very safe images. Lee Hyori, she comes out, she's so subtly sexy and sensual, and the hair is on point, and the low-rise jeans, and the low-rise jeans showing off the body, like, and her tan. To me.
I think that was, the tan was something.
Yeah, I mean, tan for, by Korean standards.
Yeah.
But she was tan for like what we could consider tan for K-pop at the time. And so she was just, again, they call it Lee Hyori syndrome because she really was so different from what was coming out at the time. So like when I think of like subversion in K-pop, it really like she's one of the first generations of like where we can get a Jessie, where we can get a Hwasa. Like it starts from people like Lee Hyori.
Oh, she was in one of Jessie's songs too, right? Nana,
yep.
The MV?
Yeah, because she was part of Refund Sisters. It was her, Jung-hwa, Hwasa, and Jessie were part of the iconic like four generations of divas of K-pop.
Although I gotta, like, nothing on Hwasa, I really like and appreciate Hwasa, but Hwasa's seat should have gone to CL in that lineup.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're the only divas. But maybe they were just the only ones that were like available at the time, probably.
maybe CL's schedule was booked or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I really like 10 Minutes. I play it all the time now. Mm-hmm. Even now I'll play it. Although most gigs I do it at, it takes a certain crowd to really get it, even with its like minor TikTok resurgence.
Yeah, because I think also people don't necessarily know what it's about too. I think it's
wait, what is it about?
So if you think so to summarize, she's like saying, I can get you in 10 minutes. So like, and she also mentions, I love this. She paints this beautiful picture of like, she's in a club and she sees a guy and she's like, in the 10 minutes that the girl that you were sitting next to, like gets up and walks away, like, I'm going to get you. Like, obviously I'm much sexier than her. Her lipstick is trash. Yeah, I've broken a lot of hearts in the past, but I want you now. And I'm going to get you in 10 minutes.
Wow.
Like, that's the vibe of the whole song.
Dude, to have that confidence.
And that's what set her apart. Like, she was so sexy and confident and assertive. And the one thing that Lee Hyori will always do is speak her mind. Whether it's in her music or even in her social activism. Like, she's known specifically as what they call in Konglish as a social litainer, which is like somebody who's an entertainer but also like socially active. And she speaks up about workers' rights, about women's rights. She's come out in support of comfort women. She encouraged people to vote in the 2012 election, which was the first election that, where Korea elected a female president. That ended up not going so well, but it was the first time, for a female president. So she's and not outside of her career, even like promoting things in Korea is like why she's like so for me such a subversive force in K-pop.
I learned of this song because Suga from BTS loves this song, and he karaoke's to it, and he's really bad, but it's. I was like, I need to hear the original. And I was like, the original is so amazing.
I'm just trying to imagine Chica singing to the song.
Yeah, now knowing the meaning, it's about a woman trying to pick up a dude in a club.
I'm dying. It's amazing. Yeah, it's on a Run BTS where they do karaoke. And I think I guess there's several Run BTS.
Yeah.
It's a more recent one. But now I have the song in my head. Thank you.
You're welcome, which is why, again, it's the best hit replay of the week. Thank you.
But bonus round.
Right.
PDM has to get another.
So we did talk
if
about.
you thought that was the best, just wait.
Well, I have some, a few honorable mentions, but I think we can't, especially this week in the first week of June, last week of May, we have to talk about the most subversive woman in K-pop today, Hee Jin, because as of Thursday, May 30th, the Seoul Central District Court ruled in favor of her injunction preventing HYBE from voting her out of Adore. And she is now currently, as of May 31st, not replaced and is still the CEO of Adore. So she won. She won. She beat the system that was working against her.
I'm looking at Virginia's face.
Did she win?
In the court of popular opinion, maybe not, but
No, but not even really. She's basically a lame duck CEO,
Well, yeah.
right?
So
Like she has no power. They fired her board and they replaced it with, like, what's infuriating about this is that it sets a really bad precedent for Korean companies because the majority shareholder cannot exercise their rights. So who's going to want to invest in Korean companies if that's the case, right? And it's like, I'm all for feminism and also, like, if you're going to be a villain, be a better one and don't get caught. Like, this is amateur villain hour. Like,
so
this is terrible. Be better. If you're going to be shitty, be the best
yeah,
at
to
being
your
shitty.
point, it wasn't that the court ruled that everything that HYBE said or presented against her was false, like especially like the leaked cacao chats of her like fat shaming New Jeans and the plagiarism. It's that it wasn't enough to prove that she actually committed what is it? A breach of trust. Like, yeah, she did it, but it wasn't enough for. Yeah, it was like it was in bad taste, but it wasn't enough to be illegal.
yeah.
Well, this is how they justified it. It was against HYBE's interests, but not against Adore's interests, and therefore she couldn't be fired from Adore because she didn't harm Adore. So, I mean, that's legal finessing.
Yeah, and then other point, two directors from her board were fired and replaced by three of HYBE's people: the officer Kim Joo-young, chief strategy officer Lee Jae-sung, and chief financial officer Lee Kyung-jun. Kim Joo-young actually specifically was one of those people involved in HYBE acquiring Ithaca Holdings. Yeah. Which I thought was interesting that like he was one of the people that was put onto the Adore team to manage Hee Jin.
Well, yeah, I just want to move us along here. We'll talk about the news a later time. I just wanted to plug Hee Jin and her song, like the Yada Yada cover that we did a while back. So anyway, that was our subversive hit replay bonus round. But we'll talk more about the news later. Let's dive in to the reason why we've got Virginia here on this episode. So we always joke like, plug your book. You actually did. You wrote a book. So
This book right here, this thing.
yeah, well,
I can't believe you bought one.
what should we like? I don't know, like read off like a sizzle, like what is it, the back of the book or the what do you call it on the
Oh, the blurb. I think that's what it is. You have under the quick.
Oh,
blurb.
sorry.
That's
Yes.
what's in the back
Okay.
of the book.
Maybe I should just read this really fast, just so in case. So all y'all who didn't know, Virginia wrote a book called Illusive, and here's the quick blurb from the novel. So after 4 years of hell, Katie Wu is finally safe. Too bad her heart hasn't gotten the memo. When pop singer Katie Wu returns to Seoul after escaping an abusive relationship, her longtime friends, rapper Jung. Oh my gosh, I've been reading their names in my head. The entire novel. I don't know.
I think it's
Jung Do
Jung
Wan.
You think
Do Wan.
it's your reality, Virginia? So you tell us like what it is.
Listen, I have to have my
Okay.
Korean friends correct me. Okay, so I think it's
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's
Jung
Jung
Do-wan.
Do Wan.
And singer Kitahara Akihiro, who are stunned by just how much Katie has changed. Her scars run deep, but even Katie is surprised by how often her trauma resurfaces, threatening her attempts to make music and find love again. At least this time, she isn't suffering alone in secret. Akihiro's determined to prove to Katie that she's nothing like her ex, while his bandmate Doan buries his emotions, focusing on his music instead. How will Katie overcome her dark memories and create a brighter future? So, read this book, take a peek behind the glamour of the K-pop industry, and join Katie as she fights to rebuild her life in the witty and steamy contemporary novel Illusive, part of her multiverse series written by Asian American author Virginia. Wait, I just realized this just now.
Who added the MF?
No, wait.
Who added that?
I was like,
Virginia
this is an official, like-
fucking Duan. Yes.
Okay, Kelly, you should have wrote that thing. Because I was like, when did this actually make it to print? But okay, Virginia.
No, I added that.
I didn't
Because
add that.
because I thought I was going to be reading the blurb.
I'm sorry. You should have
It's
read
okay. You did great, Peter.
it. Okay, I tried. All right. I don't know. Where should we begin? Like, I mean, we've got our questions here, but like, what other like context maybe we should provide to listeners hearing about this for the first time? We're gonna talk about some other stuff, and then we'll dive into spoilers. But like, maybe like quick reaction. Maybe we should give like really quick reactions to the novel first, Michaela. What do you think?
We've covered a lot of K-pop related novels in the past, and I might be a little biased, but this is my favorite.
Certainly among K-pop novels, I really enjoyed it. It was really, there was momentum, like keeping moving the story forward. I'll confess, like I think it was maybe it's just chapter 1. I was like, what year is it? I was so confused, like where I was
So
going. I think in the first chapter. I think maybe after that I got used to it. I was a little,
and that's why it's in my top, because I feel like it covers, especially from a K-pop fan perspective, especially somebody who's been a fan of K-pop for multiple decades now. It covers such a breadth of like the timeline of the industry that I feel like you can only really get from somebody as awesome as Virginia, who actually knows what she's talking about because she's friends with us.
Oh, that's the reason why.
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's true though. I think I learned a lot about
Yeah, we're
K-pop
credited.
through
We're
this
in the back of the
podcast.
book here.
You are credited,
Yeah.
especially you two.
Right here, somewhere. One of these pages.
Oh, there you go.
That's for YouTube. Sorry, podcast people.
But just to give a little bit more context for listeners who don't get the joke. So I was saying like there's multiple years because there's like I want to say like 3 or 4 different storylines that sort of, I mean, you start to see them converge, but like at the start, they're kind of their own somewhat discrete stories, and they're separated by these moments in time. So I thought that was, a fun way of peeling back the onion, so to speak, of like, learning more about like Katie's struggles and where she's coming from. And I think that's what made it sort of like, racing to, like, as you're reading and you want to like, move the story along, it's like this element was teased here in this, further future. Now let me read back in what was it, like, I forget which years, but like some of the earlier years, you're like, okay, I'm now understanding why.
Yeah, and that's why like I can't wait to go back and reread, because like now when you get to the end of it, you have so much more context for even little things that were teased.
Yeah.
Yay!
No, I know it's tough on multiple levels because it's nonlinear. There's multiple storylines. There's all these like quote unquote foreign names, right? There's a lot of Korean terms like hyung and oppa and Nuna, Sambenim and
Baobei even.
So I can totally.
Right?
Oh yeah, there's Chinese too. There's Baobei.
It includes a lovely glossary for people to understand these terms more.
Yay.
Sorry, I keep doing visual things because we're doing video.
So for audio listeners, Michaela just showed up on screen, like the glossary in the back of the book. But yeah.
Okay. But so Virginia, how did you start writing a book?
Oh, well,
Or here, how did you get started with writing in the first place?
Oh, well, I think I've always been a writer. But like as a kid growing up in the 80s, it really wasn't an option. There was like 3 routes to being a writer. You were a fiction writer, which I didn't quite understand how to do. It seemed hard. I think the next thing was like a nonfiction writer, and that seemed really boring. And then I guess journalism was also nonfiction, but like flashier, but seemed really difficult. So yeah, it never occurred to me that it was a viable career option, and not because of like stereotypical Asian American things like your parents saying, "Oh no, you have to be a doctor." It was more like I just didn't foresee a future where the internet would happen and everyone would need a writer. And so but I think I've always liked telling stories. I was obsessed with New Kids on the Block. So I wrote like stories in my head about like how I, as a 12-year-old, would have met up with Joey McIntyre, who was 16. Yeah. And it was all very innocent because I was 12. Or like I would watch television shows and try to insert my own storyline. How could I be in like He-Man or She-Ra? I was the triplet that was lost. Aurora instead of Adam and Adora. So yes, I've always been like creating stories around, I guess other stories or famous singers. So I think when I got into K-pop, it was inevitable to be like, what are their lives like? Or like, could I be a K-pop person? I could not because I'm old. But if I were to be still me, how could I be a K-pop person? Like, how could a Taiwanese American person get into K-pop? And thankfully, we have people like Mark Twan and Amber Liu to show us the way, Mark Twan, incidentally, same last name as me, just spelled differently. But yeah, so I just, that's kind of how I got started into like telling stories. And that's kind of what was the impetus for this novel. Like what would it be like to be a K-pop star, and what kind of person would that be? And if that person was me, how could I insert myself into this story? And then what would it look like? So that's how it kind of happened. I was like, well, what if we did this?
Maybe I want to ask
it was
personal question here.
All right.
I was going to ask something different before this interview, but after hearing you say that, if you don't mind me asking, how much of you is in Katie?
Oh, I want to. This is going to sound like a and like a generic asshole writer answer of like, all my characters are aspects of me. But I would say, like, if you could Mary Sue yourself, you know, like if you could like have the most hyped up, super powered version of yourself, I would hope to be half as cool as Katie, if that makes sense. So like, if I were more talented, better looking, could actually dance, you know, then, and could play all these instruments, then I guess she would be similar to me, except I feel very cheated out of these lack of K-pop stars in my life, you know? So, but yeah, I mean, in that sense, she's very similar to me. But I would never have the audacity to sleep with that many people because I just do not have any game whatsoever. So she's not really like me in that sense. I'm kind of a prude, which might be surprising. If I'm a prude in my own life, I'm not necessarily a prude in writing or whatever, or letting other people do whatever they want.
And again, for listeners who haven't yet read the novel, Katie being the main protagonist, who's very bold, and, you know, and not without her flaws and vulnerabilities, of course, but I think particularly, like you say, Virginia, like a very strong person, individual. But just also on the note of like what prompted you to write, I've heard you talk about like the need to start writing, but like what was like for you the personal impetus to start on this novel in particular?
This is actually the fourth novel I've written in this multiverse. So the conceit of the Her multiverse is that you know how, do you ever look back on your life and you wonder, oh, what if I had done this instead? What if I had chosen to go to a different college? Or what if I had been angrier or bolder or more confident? How would that have affected my life choices and decisions? And I feel like every one of us has multifacets, right? And if we lean into those more, how will that influence our decisions, right? So in the multiverse, everything that happens to Katie up until she hits Seoul is exactly the same. And then once in Seoul, she leans into different aspects of her character. And certain beats always stay the same. Like her father's always an asshole in every single iteration. But depending on what aspects of her character she leans into, she deals with him differently, right? And then her different choices affects which members that she ends up with. So that's the conceit of the multiverse, which is basically a giant why choose situation. But also I wanted to like play with the idea of time and how there's no such thing as soulmates.
Oh, okay.
That's
we'll have to talk about that more in the spoiler section of this episode. I want to return to that. I think so. What we'll do here, we'll talk about some of the themes of the novel at a high level way, in a non-spoiler fashion, and then we're gonna dive into spoilers because that's what we want to chat about. High level? Oh my gosh, I don't even know how to even talk about this in a non-spoiler way. I mean, what, Michaela, maybe I'll ask you, like, what were some of the major themes that you saw?
Well, you know, I picked these ones specifically. So we've got, it's definitely writing intimacy. There's varying levels of intimacy in this novel.
Yeah.
And then we've, you know, interracial dating, you know, multicultural couples in this show. And then also really getting into, like you said, the human side of like what people in K-pop are actually going through. They're very poignant beats about characters dealing with depression and suicidal thoughts, which leads me back to a question specifically that I think we can talk about without spoilers that we talked about forever ago. I don't know if you remember, Virginia, but we were talking about preparing for the tableau interview, and you mentioned this thing about writing about pain and being able to write about an experience and write it in a way that is genuine, but also in a way that doesn't necessarily hurt you in the process. And you mentioned Kate being so close to who you are and writing from a personal experience. Like, so how, especially in the theme of depression and suicide, how would you go about writing about those things without hurting yourself in the process, or did you?
So I think I've worked through a lot of my own trauma. So Katie's father is actually based on my own father. A lot of the things that Katie's father did to her, my own father did to me. And so, but I've dealt with a lot of it through like 3 different therapists over the years. But it's one of those things where I think I've processed a lot of it. But when I was first writing this universe, so like I think I mentioned before, this is the 4th novel I've written in this universe, but it was the first one I published because you get better over time, right? So, I'm not publishing. I could not possibly publish the first novel as it is. But I think a lot of that processing happened in the first novel. So I would get like panic attacks when I was thinking about scenes. But it's sort of like when therapists work with small children and they do like imaginative play. And so it's like envisioning, like dealing with people who have traumatized you or how you would work it out differently or whatever. So it was kind of like that. So I think because I had worked out a lot of the issues either through therapy or from writing previous novels, it was less harmful to me as I wrote it. But I did want to keep both myself, not myself necessarily in mind, but because even in my nonfiction writing, I write about abuse or trauma or the things that my father has done, or even like suicidal ideation and those things like that. So I have written about tough subjects without it hurting me, so to speak, but I didn't want to traumatize the reader, right? And I'm a firm believer in that you don't have to see something bad happen in order to know that something bad happened. So I tried to show the violence off screen or off page, I guess, off book in this sense. And I tried to show only glimpses of it, and I tried to depict the horribleness of what happened to her by how she reacts to things versus necessarily drawing out what people have done to her. And I also I don't like it when like trauma is the like person's personality trait, if that makes sense. Like, and I feel like a lot of times movies or books, they do that to women, usually because it's a man writing a woman, and they're like, well, her whole personality is she's a assault victim, and you're like, like that's not her personality, right? So I wanted to be mindful of that too, to treat people who have been hurt and abused in a careful way, but not dishonest, if that makes sense. So I think it was delicate or trying to figure out a good balance about it.
I think another like macro level theme I'd point to in a non-spoiler way is just that a lot of other K-pop flavored novels or young adult novels that we've read before really lean into the like idol versus the company dynamic, or maybe a lot of the cliches that you hear around like, oh, well, you can't be like dating, can't be caught dating sort of thing, or what's another one? But like, like all the things like, if you've been into K-pop for a couple of years and then, you learn about like, oh, well, these things are unique about the K-pop industry, and then making that the main plot device and focus of the story. This, I felt like it just took things in a very different direction. Like, yes, there are like stars and producers here, idols and producers here. But that wasn't as much the focus of the story. So I think in that sense, like it was more refreshing for me to read. And like really, at least when I was reading it, like the thing that I was forcing me to kind of like race ahead and reading it was just more like the interpersonal dynamic between a lot of the characters. So that's I think maybe not a theme, but like just something that I enjoyed about reading this book versus maybe other like K-pop labeled like novels out there.
It could be because those novels were probably romances, but this book is technically not a romance, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
even though there's romance elements, but it's because romances are usually main female character, main male character. There's a meet cute or a meet hate or something, right? And then the story's about their love story and how they get together. But this is, I guess, it's called like women's fiction, where the emphasis is on a person's journey versus so that's probably the difference you're detecting. And there's a place for romance, which we all love, or I love, and there's a place for this sort of whatever I just threw at you.
Yeah, absolutely. Women's journey. It's not clear to me now that you've said that. I think it's funny you say romance, and like I'm trying to think of like romance novels my wife reads, and like maybe it's not romance as it is like erotic fiction. So that I was pausing there for a second because like there's a lot of very explicit sexual scenes in this book.
Yes, it's
which really leads me to so when it comes to how you approach writing intimacy, I feel like there's usually this dynamic of showing something that's meant to be just like sensual versus sexual, or where it's like one's meant to be like tantalizing in your parts, and then one's meant to be tantalizing in your heart, you know? So when it comes to how you approach each of those scenes in the book, kind of like where was your kind of like guide for like how you were explaining each scene or writing each scene?
okay. So in general, I hate writing smut. Which might be surprising since I think both of you thought there was more smut than the normal books you read, whereas this is actually on the lower end of the type of books I read, I guess.
Okay.
So I think Peter mentioned erotica. Erotica is actually, I think, just straight up. There's not often story.
Nothing.
It's in its separate category. Because like even like Bridgerton has sex scenes like this. Maybe not as long. Ooh, is that a sex joke? But like Bridgerton, like Regency romances, all these, I think they're called open bedroom door romances, and then there's closed bedroom door romances. So closed bedroom door would be like R-rated, they fade to black, and then open bedroom door would be like NC-17 kind of thing. But not. Well, I guess maybe it's closer to. Because it is pretty explicit. So maybe not NC-17, but a little bit higher rating. And Michaela, as for your question, because let's see. I try to make sure that any explicit scene, any like bedroom quote unquote scene is trying to show something, and I don't mean sex. I mean like it needs to further characterization and further the plot. So yeah, I think that's my personal opinion is I don't particularly enjoy reading books with like more than 20%. 20% is like pushing it. So I try to keep my scenes limited, if that makes sense. Yes. So I don't know if that answered your question, but they're really difficult to write because I don't know if you want to try this exercise at home, folks, but try and write an explicit love scene and you'll realize everything sounds stupid. Like
Yeah.
And like how many times can you use a different word for like a penis or a vagina? And then pretty soon you're like, is this a medical exam? Like it just, but then if you use like slang terms, you're like, what? It's just all so cringe. Like it's really easy to write bad sex scenes. And I'm not saying I write them well or write them like. I personally think my sex scenes are not that exciting, but I think compared to the things I have read, and I'm just like, yo, I'm not down with those types of things. I'll write it, I guess. I'll read it, but I don't think it fits these characters in this situation. But yeah, I don't know how I got my train of thought got derailed. Sorry. But yeah, it's very difficult. And that's why I hate it. And I think it takes like 10 times longer for me to write any sort of explicit scene than it does for me, like a conversation where they're making fun of each other, because that's so much more enjoyable to me.
No, I think
there were a lot of conversations, the making fun of each other conversations in this as well, and they were fun, cute. I guess maybe it's just, so this is me like being the caveat for like the general K-pop listeners out there. There was more sexually explicit content in there that I'm just used to reading in general, just because I'm maybe like a young summer child, who hasn't like veered into that territory. So for me, like, as the uninitiated, it was really out there and compelling. Like, I felt the motivations and like the desires of the characters, which I thought you did really well. I think the other thing, I don't know, just like as a straight male, just kind of seeing like the female gaze, so to speak.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how to say this without being weird, but like, I just find it like intellectually very interesting. And, it's just something I've always curious about, honestly. So I getting that perspective, I think was fun. And then there were also a lot of things that like Virginia, like you say, like you try not to talk about like the, like, oh, I'm just having like gratuitous sex scenes in here. But you also, there was, I think it's not too spoiler of me to say, like, how does one achieve an orgasm sort of thing, and that playing a role in the dynamic, between characters. So, like I guess maybe what I mean to say is like there are things that might conventionally be seen as like taboo or maybe like a clear part of a relationship dynamic, but you usually are in the what you said, like closed bedroom door dynamic. Like you wouldn't talk about in that case, because that's like maybe too much detail or something. I don't know.
You're speaking about like mental illness and maybe like the roles, like medication might, or mental illness.
It's all those things, right?
Yeah.
But I think. Sorry, I'm stumbling with words right now.
Sorry. I promise there's not that much sex in this story. But maybe more than you would, 100% more than what you would expect in YA. Yeah, certainly that, right? But because I'm just used to maybe reading too much YA. Is maybe the thing. But the conversations between the characters and just like, them trying to set expectations with each other. And maybe I'm thinking like one scene in particular, like the first time two characters, sleep together,
do the deed, like, and like you're one guy clearly wants to make his gal happy, and it's just, there's that whole dynamic. I think that maybe wouldn't be touched on in a closed door thing. And yes, like there's the whole journey, before and after that as well. That that's not about the sex, but like it's like this is the journey of the character that goes into that moment as well. So I don't know. I think that was just really unique for me to read.
And adding to your point, into those moments from the female gaze, but also the male gaze as well, I think. Because there are points where you kind of jump between both of them. And so when it comes to understanding like the male gaze of a situation, was there any kind of difference in how you approached writing?
I mean, I think it's, even though it's written from a male point of view, I think it's still writing a man from the female gaze, right? Like, if that makes sense. Like, I don't, like, I think a lot of the conversations that they have about negotiating sex and boundaries, I don't know if people actually have them. Like, I feel like that's a huge fantasy. I hope people are having these conversations, but
Right.
I don't know that people actually do. But like, yeah, so I don't necessarily know if I wrote men realistically, especially K-pop idols realistically, because I think we would all like to think our oppas, well, to me, they would not be oppas, but like these K-pop idols are like the paragons of society, but they're just regular people, right? Some of them are great and some of them are shitty and some of them are just normal, like 80% people, you know what I mean? Like, so, so I would have to assume that a decent portion of male idols might, like, we would all like to think they're all sensitive and caring about, you know, the other person's feelings or how they're doing. But I really don't necessarily know if anything, if you're a male idol, you would probably feel more entitled to taking whatever you want, right? Like, so.
So
So any male idols watching or listening, go read the book and let us know.
Yeah, and hit me up, and we could do, you know, first person research.
Yeah.
Kidding. Only apply if you're sugar. Yeah. So.
Can I talk about interracial dating before we move on to
Yeah,
specific
yeah.
Let's do
spoiler
it.
moments? Because I think, again, turning a question back to you, because this is something that we talked about with Fatima about, you know, the fact that you have a lot of interracial couples in this book. And so I'll ask your question that you asked to her. So how did you navigate approaching those different characters in respect of their cultures? Like, how was your process for that for you?
So I'm not Korean. I am Taiwanese American. So that's pretty easy for me to write Katie's point of view because I am also, she is also Taiwanese American, raised in America. And as for Akihiro, he's Japanese, but then moved to Korea for his career to become an idol. And Doan is Korean. So it was difficult because I didn't want to misrepresent cultures or people's expectations. And so I hired a cultural editor. And she read the book like 9 times, I think, just like make sure. And then even then we missed certain things. There was a scene at the beginning of the book where one of the characters gives Katie a housewarming present and suggests knives. And I had just, but it's actually very superstitious. It's both bad in Chinese and Korean cultures to give people knives as a housewarming gift because it or a gift in general because it represents that you want to cut off the relationship. And so I didn't catch it. And so this was a last minute catch from one of my friends who read it as an advanced reader. She's like, "Hey, I don't want to like mess up your whole book, but actually," and I was like, "Oh shit!" So, you know, I'm sure I missed a lot of things because we're all just human, right? And it's all make believe. No actual idols checked. To like Yuta did not read this and go, actually, that's not how Japanese idols think in Korean in K-pop, right? I'm like, damn it. So I try to be as careful as I could to talk about like the experience of being foreign or learning another language or just the culture shock. But hopefully any mistakes are mine and not my editors or friends who read it in advance. So that's what I tried to do. And I did a lot of research as much as I could.
So what, maybe last theme before we dive really into spoilers? Sure. Sorry. What, do we want to talk more about the human side? Like I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but like just like the complex, like depression. Sorry, should we have a trigger warning here?
Oh, yeah.
What? I don't know, Mikhail. What do we usually say here? Like,
Maybe like trigger warning, suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And depression, I guess. mental illness.
Yeah. So trigger warning, depression, suicide, ideation. There are those thoughts and those aspects. I mean, it's a big part of the stories here. So yeah, just to read off one of our pre-scripted questions here, like what do you want our readers to learn from Kate's struggles with suicidal thoughts and depression?
I don't know if there's a particular lesson, but just that, I mean, it sounds so generic, but like everybody, lots of people have struggles, including idols. But I think mostly I want folks to see one way of healing. That's another thing I wanted to show through the multiverse, which is different ways to heal from trauma. That there's no right way to do so. And that it's difficult to reach out for help.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really difficult. There's lots of aspects at play. Like, for instance, during the pandemic, I had a few days where it was really, really bad for me. And I couldn't, and I wrote an article about it. But the reason why I didn't reach out, even though, because I've written lots of articles on mental health and like suicidal ideation. But when it happened to me for like 3 to 4 days, it was a bad spiral. I couldn't reach out, or I refused to, because I was worried that they would take my children away. Or if my husband and I ended up getting a divorce, that he would use mental illness or this episode against me and take my children away, right? Like, so it's so big, and because certain people you speak to are mandated reporters, you know, and it's for your safety, but also it can also be used against you, right? So I think I just wanted people to see that in her situation, she felt like this was her only choice. And it turned out not to be.
Right.
But like it could have been a much more tragic ending, right? But then we wouldn't have a novel. And so, but you know, it like a lot of K-pop and K-drama stars have died by suicide, you know, and I think we should just have more compassion for that, right? Like we never know. It's so cliche to say like, oh, we never know what people are going through, but it's true. We never know what people are going through, right? And then I kind of illustrate a little bit of it, but like internet vitriol is really bad, you know, and some of the choices she makes draws a lot of fire from the interwebs and starts fan wars, and people do tell her to like do bad things to herself, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I think she just lucked out, you know, and I think if people are fans of K-pop, to please treat these folks, these celebrities as people and not as like some puppet or avatar of your desires or whatever. So.
I mean, talking just a bit more about K-pop generally for a moment, like maybe it happens because we're looking at a character and we're not thinking of the human. So yeah, just a PSA to think of the human.
Yeah, and to your point, like the persona that we're looking at, the book is a lot about personas, right? Katie has her own persona. She gives a particular persona to her friends in the industry and to her fans in general. Doan has a particular persona and he feels obligated to be that persona all the time. Akihiro also has his own persona and he doesn't know how to break past that to be like, to what Michaela was saying, like to have actual intimacy versus just physical intimacy with Katie. And so like all these, and that's actually why I called it Illusive. It's a pun also on elusive because she is very elusive, but it's mostly she's making an illusion, right? It's all with her personas and sometimes it's like you fake it till you make it. And sometimes it's like, well, this is the only way you can pull through in this situation, or you hide, and it's bad for you, you know. So,
should we move into like spoiler?
Yes.
Territory? Like, I think we're getting there. So,
yeah, sorry.
Okay, so if you enjoyed some of the topics that we've talked about, go out, get the book. We'll have a link in the episode description. That's your spoiler. Okay. Consider yourself warned. Spoiler territory begins now. I don't know. I don't know.
Spoiler.
How many.
She has sex with a lot of them. But my question for you, Virginia,
Yes.
why not Sumin? Why not Sumin? He was right there. Like, and I had the worst like fourth, fifth male lead syndrome for Sumin, to be honest. Because like he related to her. He was her voice when she couldn't really speak the language. Like they kind of related because he was Gyopo and they understand like the fish out of water story. And like to find out that he did have a crush on her the whole time. Virginia, why? Why not? Why was he not? Why did you do to my OTP? Why was he not endgame?
Well, if you wait long enough and read enough of the
epilogue.
books in the series, he too will have his day in the sun.
Okay.
Sorry, that was just the biggest thing I had to get off my chest. That was that she doesn't, at least in this book,
Yeah.
end with Sumin.
You're going to be mad a really long time at me. I'm sorry.
Damn it. Okay.
But a lot of people agree with you. So
Okay, Peter, I don't even know where to begin on now that we're actually in the like spoiler territory. I don't know where I want to start.
do you have favorite characters, favorite moments, people you wanted? Like, a lot of people love Alton. I have friends who are like, I bias Alton. Where's Alton's story? And I'm like, oh,
okay.
I
See, that's the
planning on
thing.
writing one.
He's still on the lower level for me as far as like my rank of men in her life.
Oh, wait, I want to hear your rank.
There's so much there. Well, to be honest, my all of my notes for the book are by hookups.
Wait, hookups for Katie or
Yeah, hookups for Katie. So
Okay.
and there are at least two with Alton that I remember, or that I wrote, where I put in my notes. And for him, like, he was always the character that I was like the most suspicious of. Because
No, I was also like, I had my guard up. I was like, this guy's got another motive here.
Really?
Yeah.
He didn't want
yeah.
nothing in return.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he does, but he's also okay with her not choosing him, right? Like,
Yeah, so he's D tier as far as like my favorite.
I love it. I love all these different responses to these folks. So who was your favorite? Sumin? Sumin was your favorite?
Sumin is like the goal OTP, but as far as like actually my favorite is probably Hero, but I think, or Akihiro, because like, but just be from the perspective of just like their knowing more of like their relationship journey. I think, and like how, especially again, loving the part of their communication with each other. Like they actually do the thing.
Wait, what do you mean by communication?
Well, it's going back to what we mentioned earlier about like her being very honest about like not
On the upfront.
wanting to be sexually intimate with him, and then them like kind of working with each other once they try to initiate that intimacy. But then also when it comes to her opening up about why she's being so reserved with him, and like them actually having that communication part that so many relationships like in books and movie and dramas, especially like in the Hallyu sense of things, the characters never have those communication moments, and that's always what hurts their relationship. But you actually get to see that with her and Hero.
But
Yeah.
it's so interesting that you say that, because it is actually the lack of communication that hurts them, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. But there are smaller steps to a better, relationship that I see in the that could it could have been so great.
It could have been.
Yeah, and I think that's what you were talking about earlier, like Virginia. Like I even called it out. I think explicitly at one point in the story, where I think Katie said like, it could have possibly worked out like, one time, or like if maybe the timing or conditions or something, whatever, like, it might have even worked out. But yeah, I think that was, yeah, of all the characters I can relate to, I think it was certainly Akihiro the most. And like, I think one on like the more like young puppy end at the start of the relationship, like, he's clearly excited about, Nuna and wants to give it his all, and go into it with like all the best of intentions. I think that certainly, I think every, like, are you guys familiar with Wong Fu Productions? Like,
Yes.
in like Wong Fu, they had this like YouTube series, I want to say early days of YouTube. YouTube was still maturing around this time, but they had this like Good Guy series.
This sounds familiar, yeah.
Anyway, it was like it was kicked off by this like one like romance video that they did where it's like, oh, this guy, he's always trying to make himself known and he's just a good guy.
The nice guy.
The nice guy, that's what it was. Was it nice guy?
Nice guy.
Nice guy. Anyway, so later we find out like, it's kind of like an abuser dynamic, being like a nice guy, like, it's like most nice guys actually aren't nice guys, like and they kind of use it to like fuel their own like hate for women incel things. Where was I going with this? So anyway, I guess I mean to say like, every guy thinks that they're a nice guy. They all think that they're a healthy protagonist. They all think that, they're trying to do the right thing for their partner. And like what Katie even calls it out a few times, like, oh man, this guy, he's delicious, he's handsome, and he's ready to move at my pace and do these things. But and yet, like he doesn't know how to confront or address the moment. Like you can really see how Akihiro is kind of like helpless, like he just doesn't have the literacy or like the understanding to broach like a lot of these mental health items, or he just feels unequipped, like so I think in that sense, I relate as well. It's just like, how do I speak with this gender, or how do I, I think it's almost like used by the patriarchy at times, but like, there's a scene in The Notebook where like the guy is like, what do you want? Right. And she's like, I don't know. Like, what do you want? Right. And I think, a lot of like male written, comedy and skits will be like, well, if only women just, spoke their minds. Right. Like, as if it was that simple, or that easy. And I think, in that same way, like, I relate to that. Like, I'm struggling, to speak in a way that is received by the opposite gender, or is understood, or how do I approach this in a respectful way, such that I'm not blowing up on the other person. And
Right.
and that's what I felt like was like the crux of his fallout. So yeah.
It's interesting because I have friends who hate Akihiro, like absolutely despise him. They're like, oh, he's such a jerk. He treats her so poorly, and how dare he, like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you have feelings
For my characters. Yeah.
yeah. And but part of me is just like, first of all, he's young, right? He's like mid-20s, right? I mean, no, late 20s. But like, it's his first real long-term relationship. And then how can he, so yes, he's bad at communicating his real worries, right? Because he thinks that love will fix everything, that love is enough. And I wanted to make it very clear that love is not enough. And like good intentions are enough. Because I think he's a good intention guy, right?
Right.
But he wasn't equipped, like you said, Peter. Like but he wasn't equipped partially because Katie never told him these things, right? Like Katie was unable to communicate these things. And, it happens a lot to people with complex PTSD, which I think is what she had. And so she was unable to explain her triggers or like even really know how to deal with it. Cause sometimes you just want to move on from something and you don't realize like, you think like, oh, if I'm just away from a bad situation, it won't affect me. But that's the problem with complex PTSD. You never know what kind of can play into that. And so part of it was like Katie didn't set him up to win, and not that it's her fault or her choice, like that she could have fixed things if she was fixed or whatever. But like, it's not entirely like, it wasn't like he was on purpose being a jerk,
Right.
Or on purpose triggering her. He just genuinely didn't know, and he was trying his best, right?
Which, to my point, Kate, for me, was the most frustrating character. Just because,
I bet.
especially in the initial few chapters, because again, I don't know as much about her story, especially her background. But then by the end of the book, I do start. Once you get that more understanding of like, why can't you just say the thing, just tell people, just like why, and then it's like, okay, I get it now, like why it is so hard for her to connect, why it is so hard for her to just open herself up again to especially the men in her life after being hurt so physically in that way.
I mean, I'll add, like, as a straight male reading it, I felt like I was getting those hints. Well, I mean, Virginia, you said you wrote this from like a what was it? Like a guy's perspective of I forgot how you described it earlier, but like
the female gaze of what a male gaze would be.
Right. So, but there were times, right? Like, you were hearing Kate's thoughts in an indirect way, like, oh, she didn't want another man controlling her life, right? In the same way, like Tony has. By the way, Tony, like every time I read Tony, I was thinking, like, you guys know that internet meme of like that, like Chinese like manufacturer trying to speak in an American accent, and. Okay, really random reference. Where are you going with this, Peter? I don't know. But to me, like, Tony was like, wow, we're really going full on gangster here with Tony.
Gangster.
Anyway, but like, I felt like the explanations were happening in the moment, like as a straight male. It was for me to empathize, with Katie's like situation and understand, she's not just blowing up because she's a woman or she's on a period or whatever, right?
She's
like
not just
like you're
emotional.
seeing, yeah. So that made me not hate Katie.
I mean, she is a rather unsympathetic character. I think I made her that way on purpose at the beginning because I feel like a lot of hurt people are incredibly unsympathetic, right? Because like they're just, because they're hurt, right? That's how, and I think that's why I started off a lot of the book with, from like Akihiro or Dolan's point of views, because I want to kind of shut the reader out, and so that they feel very like, what is going on?
Right.
Why is she such a bitch? or like, probably she has a good reason, but I don't know.
But I think like, I don't know if you intended it or not, Virginia, but like narrative wise, like it felt to me that there was a very heavily implication. There are reasons.
Yes.
Like, it wasn't like I was writing this character off right away. I was like, I knew from the onset, I don't know, like maybe some of the narrative, I can't think of a specific example, but like just from the get-go, I could tell. In this, by the way, I went into this cold. I didn't read the blurb, so I didn't like know what I was reading.
I'm so sorry.
No. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that like I was really just going into it blind. Like I was even like guessing like, oh my God, like does Katie commit suicide? Are we going to like hear about like her postmortem album? Like,
Right.
I was really wondering that, like, at different parts, like, how like when you start like, the album, the track list, like, oh, is this a postmortem like album? So like, that would,
that was
as a blind reader going into it, I was like questioning every turn and like, oh, does the main character change now? Or I didn't. Anyway,
Yeah, that was the great gift about not telling the story linearly is the fact that you have those scenes with Tony where he is abusive to the point where you fear for her life, and to know that we've already seen what happens after that was great.
Yeah, I think that's one way I wanted to assure the reader.
Yeah, I was like, all right, I was like, wait, what year is it? Oh, okay, 2003. Okay, I just read 2025, so we're good.
Yes. Yeah, I think I wanted to show also like how our past informs our present, which also informs our future.
right.
And so we, at all times, are all possibilities, all our timelines at the same time, right? Like this moment. So I kind of wanted to show that. And I also wanted to show sort of like how cyclical things were. So similar things showed up in both like Akihiro and Doan with Katie, or even with Tony and Katie, right? Like similar situations came up and were mirrored, but how differently any of the characters reacted, and how the difference in reaction changed what happened, if that makes sense. So that's why I like playing with time. The second book is also told very non-linearly. I apologize ahead of time.
I think I actually struggled to empathize with Doan. Like, I at times was like, Katie is like emotionally cheating on her boy.
On Doan?
No, on Akihiro.
With
I
Doan.
felt with Doan, yeah. Or maybe I was reading the years wrong. But like, before the moment, like before she broke up with Akihiro, and or maybe it's happened the other way around. But like, before the moment they broke up, and she jumped into things to Doan. Like I don't know. Again, maybe I perhaps placed myself too strongly into Akihiro's perspective, where I was like, my boy. But I mean, like, obviously he's got his issues, and, he's not perfect either. But like,
Is Doan then your OTP?
OTP, what?
Is it OTP one true pairing?
Or, sorry. Yeah. So like the favorite person that Kate ends up with was Doan for you.
Oh, no, I was going to say the opposite. No,
Oh,
like,
okay.
I struggle with Doan is what I'm saying. Like I mean, yeah, he was a great guy for Katie and all, and they had some really steamy scenes and whatnot. But like I don't know. It felt like, I think what Katie even called it out. Like, she had to kind of process everything, and she didn't want to be like a repeat of that to him. But it's like, but our boy Akihiro, was, not that he's entitled to it, but it felt like he was, deprived of like the evolved Katie.
So I'm curious, did you expect Katie to end up with Akihiro?
No, I wasn't expecting that either.
Oh, okay.
But
You just wanted justice for Akihiro.
I guess. I don't know. Akihiro even said it about Alton at one point. Like, he's like, this is Akihiro like looking at Alton, and like Alton's like, a really likable guy. It's part of what makes it, all the more reason why he didn't like it. Maybe I feel the same way about Doan, honestly. Like,
He's too good. God damn it.
yeah, a little, but also like, I don't know what, there were all those times, right? Or like, okay, Virginia, like maybe a critique is just like,
Okay.
like, Doan had all these like perfect moments to be like the nice guy, to be like, oh, Akihiro said that to you. Like, or like, oh, he did that? Like, what? Like, and there was a chance for Doan to be the hero and the good guy.
But he doesn't. I think it's because, one, I don't want to make Doan an asshole, but two, like, I feel like his friendship with Akihiro is still stronger than his friendship with her, right? Like, they've known each other for a really long time. And he's just getting to know her. Like, I feel like it's a very bros before hoes kind of thing. And to clear up the timeline, they don't actually start working together until he breaks up with his girlfriend, or his girlfriend breaks up with him. And she and Akihiro have been broken up for a bit. But yeah, it's messy. I know. I'm sorry. There's no satisfaction because I think life is messy. You know, and
that's what I was definitely getting at. It's like I think you were. What I was interpreting when reading this was that was your point. Like, you were trying to illustrate to us that, you know, even with, like, you know, people going into it with the best of intentions or whatever, like you say, life is messy.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have these dynamics and things play out the way they do. But, like, you know, that doesn't mean I can't feel for Akihiro. Totally. You know, like, I don't know. Again, he's not morally owed anything, but I feel that, you know, empathy, like, you know, who's done wrong almost. But
when I was first writing it, I debated on whether or not who she would end up with. Because, yeah, I was like, well, it would be neater if, it would be a lot more like you tie up the plot in a very nice bow if she and Akihiro can make it work, right? Like, true love does conquer all, you know, with enough therapy.
Sure, but I would even add that it was the right move not to have, you know, her end up with Akihiro. I think, you know, from a writing story point of view, it would be disappointing, I think, if she did end up with him.
Interesting.
But again, I feel for the guy.
I feel bad for him too.
Yeah.
Because he tried so hard.
Right.
You know? This book is so sad. I'm so sorry, everyone.
No, I really, yeah.
If I could transition us then to our next question, which I think is a little bit more fun. I am very, very curious. So, when this book eventually gets picked up by Apple TV for syndication into a drama, what is our cast looking like in your vision? Like,
Dude,
who
I
is
have no
Kate?
idea. I
Who
only
is
have,
Hiro? Who is Doan? Because you know, like, in your ideal casting.
Okay, the first person I would like is Alton to be played by Daniel Henney.
Ooh. Yes, I love that.
Right, I need to look these people up.
I
Suave
literally
rich man.
imagine like a Daniel Henney like kind of guy, and especially like older, more suave, more mature. Yeah.
I can see that. I think I was imagining a similar body and face when I was hearing this. Yeah.
Is Doan J-Hope?
He's modeled after him to some extent. Yeah.
Wow, good guess, Michaela.
Not entirely, obviously, because I don't know J-Hope. And I have no idea what he's like in real life. But yeah, like, I feel like the band is very similar to a lot of the popular, like, I feel like the makeup of it seems very NCT-esque. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Korean Americans, Japanese members, Korean members.
So does that make Aki officially Yuta then?
Oh,
because that's the thing is, like, at first I also think of Yuta, but then just like the physicality of Aki feels more like Wonho, you know what I mean?
You think of him as that buff, huh?
Maybe that's just me as inspirational, but like,
I was thinking of Kai because Kai was also a ballet dancer. Yeah. But Wonho is a hoe, and I feel like Akihiro is a hoe, so I understand those vibes.
Okay, what about Kate?
Kate, I don't know enough actresses that are like young Asian American actresses enough to know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible at this. I'm so sorry.
Well, Bibi. I know technically she's not Taiwanese, but
yeah, she's got that. She could do it. Although I feel like she's too cool almost.
Oh, okay.
But she does play like kind of off kilter a little bit, and I think sometimes Katie can come off kilter.
Okay.
Is off kilter the right word? I don't know, but
Okay. What? And then the last one, Tony. Who's Tony?
oh, dude, I feel like it makes him really old. But like someone like Donnie Ip.
Really?
Johnny, like
I think that there's a certain like evil class that comes with Tony, like,
Yeah.
of money and resource. And I think Donnie could kind of match that and like, almost like white collar criminal sort of thing. So yeah. Sorry, Michaela, I cut you off, I think.
No, I'm more curious of like what Virginia's vision was.
yeah, I mean that's kind of what it is. Either him or what's his name? Who's the like main one car Y guy? He was in like Crouching Tiger. What's his name? I know his name. Why can't I remember his name? I know all my references are old people. I'm so sorry because I'm old.
Yeah, speaking of old, I think the other thing that bothered me, Virginia, sorry, was like when at one point in the book, people were calling Katie for being like in her like middle-aged life, and she was in her 30s or something. At the time, I was like, what? Oh, or is that supposed to be more like a comment on how the entertainment industry and K-pop fans say people in their 30s?
Yes.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. I was thinking of Chow Yun-fat.
Oh, really?
Because I feel like they're all really from Infernal Affairs, right? Like they're all like really classic Hong Kong businessmen. They can look like that, and they like can seem suave, but also like underneath they're really dangerous. I didn't picture Tony as like Flower Boy. I pictured him more like stocky. Not that Donnie or Chow Yun-fat are stocky, but like just unconventionally attractive, if that makes sense. Like,
Okay.
there's like a gravitas to them and like kind of like a don't fuck with them vibe, even though they're clearly like a different generation than Tony is, because Tony is also in his like late 30s or whatever. But yeah, I tried to show the toxic and good sides of K-pop fandoms in the like tweets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the fun part of fandom, to see Twitter, or I guess Twix, X, I don't know what it's called.
Twitter.com. I'm going to call it by its government name.
There you go. Yeah. So I tried to. Oh, I'm curious. What did you guys think of like all the lyrics and the like reviews?
I'm gonna tell you,
like
I've never been so frustrated to not be able to hear songs that I think I would like.
yay! I would like someone to write these pretty things.
Especially when you have lyrics and like full album concept breakdowns and track lists. I guess maybe a quick question for that one would be as far as artist wise, like when it comes to Chimera and Kate's sound, like who would you assign to them? Like who is Kate's sound and who is Chimera?
Oh, Doyen.
Sorry,
you mean?
Doyen.
I know. So, fun fact: Doyen stands for like. What does it stand for?
It's okay. It's K-pop.
Something
Acronyms don't mean anything.
Yeah, but it's like something of youth, eternal nation, right? Dreams of youth, eternal nation. But Doyen actually means an old person. So I was like hoping someone would notice. That's my like little Easter egg joke.
That Easter egg.
And then Chimera I kept because again it's elusive. It's like chimeras are like illusions.
Yeah, Chimera being the
Anyway, sorry.
fandom name of Doyen. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think Doyen sounds like who would they
NCT?
sound like? Not as noisy. I know I'm using noisy wrong, Peter.
I'll pretend I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I want to say like some. I know this is like some cross between BTS and EXO. I'm sorry to the fandoms that hate each other. But,
To be honest, that's NCT.
maybe
to
more.
me.
But I feel like NCT has way more discordant songs.
True, they are neo technology,
like
but
Sticker.
I think of when I think of like compared to like the evolution of NCT versus EXO, NCT was where the rap line got serious, And I feel like that's where I would
Oh,
apply that
that's true, that's
BTS
true.
aspect to them of like the rap line being like serious about like performance and execution and actual lyrical quality.
I think I imagined Akihiro's album to sound a lot like Taemin.
Oh,
Really?
oh,
Yeah.
See? Love that. Okay.
Because, you know, Taemin has like really like dramatic.
Yeah,
type of,
and
like-
especially like even
Yeah.
Taemin in Japan too, specifically. Like I can completely imagine that too as well. Which he's like 10 times more theatrical and dramatic in Japan.
Our good little Catholic boy. And Katie reminds me of like an Asian Tori Amos.
Who? Tori.
Do you know who Tori
I
Amos is?
should. Hang on, I'm looking at her right now.
So she wrote like she was one of like the alternative music, like Lilith, like pre Lilith Fair, like she's old, but I feel like she reminds me of like Tori Amos crossed with like Alanis Morissette,
okay.
who wants to rap.
Good. And also performance, like dance involved as well.
Oh, I wouldn't say she's a good dancer. I would say she tries real hard. But no one would be like, Katie's a good dancer.
Well, then
right? Like,
from performance side, so that's what she sounds like. What when you imagine how she performs, how would you compare her performance?
I would probably, I don't see enough. I imagine her like more like Jessie, because it's not that Jessie doesn't dance, but she's not known for being a good dancer, right? And then I would
Not like a Chungha or a
no, she's not nearly good enough. Like, no one would be like, oh yeah, she's a great dancer. Maybe who's that? Who did is it Soyeon? The
Seattle?
she collabed with RM and she was on P-Sick.
It wasn't Jun Soyeon, I don't think.
Jun Soyeon has a bit on P-Chic. Sesonyeon? The rocker, the rock band? Yeah, Sesonyeon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Or Se Neon, or but it's Sesonyeon.
Yeah, I kind of imagine her like that a little bit.
Okay.
Like, because I should have used her as the Subversive, because I feel like they're kind of like alternative, but like rebellious, but also like a good girl. I don't know, but kind of like that. And also because she plays a guitar, and like instruments and stuff.
Got
like
it.
that,
So, listeners, while you're reading the book, play Sesonyeon and NCT and EXO and BTS and and Taemin as BGM for as you're going through the story.
or just whatever music you want to hear.
I mean, I've just had like miscellaneous thoughts from reading. What was that therapy technique used?
Oh, EMDR.
Yeah, that
Is
was
that a
my
real
first time
thing?
being introduced to that
It
as
is
a
a real
concept.
thing.
That was interesting.
Yeah, I can never remember what it stands for, because I do research for things and then I promptly forget everything because New Kids on the Block's birthdays occupy all my brain cells, which is sad but true. But yeah, it's a real therapy, and I actually had one of my friends, actually, her psychiatrist, therapist, psychologist, is named after one of my friends who also practices EMDR, and yeah, it's a real thing. I did a lot of research for it to make sure, and I had people who have both undergone EMDR or who have done or who practice, who are the person who is the doctor in the situation, read over it to make sure it was depicted accurately, and because I don't want to misrepresent something as important as that. But yeah, it's a real thing, and then you can do it with like injuries or trauma. I think it works best. It doesn't work as well with complex PTSD. So in that case, I was stretching the truth a little bit. But it can work with it. And I think it works better with like isolated moments versus like abuse over a long period of time. So it works best on like, if a particular incident happened, and then it works on, but something about the eye movement between left and right, they do it with like sounds or clicks or even light. Something about, you don't even have to talk about the memory, just even thinking about it as you do the rapid eye movement, it processes in your body for some reason. And so they say it can take like 6 to 8 sessions and you're good.
Wow.
Right? It's amazing. I was like, how come this was not told? I didn't know this was available. If it was, I would have probably tried it, Yeah.
When I was reading through the timeline of like the therapy sessions, I don't know, maybe this is me like incorrectly reading in between the lines, but I felt like you were trying to tell us something like this is how it should be. Like for example, her first session, it was traumatic for her and a lot, but like I don't know, my read of it was like this was like an 8-minute or super, not including the getting ready for it, but like just the actual bridging up to the trauma itself. It seemed like a super short session. And then the doctor was like, okay, this is a lot. Let's just cut it off here, and really try to make her feel like in control of, like, okay, let's call it here. Or I forgot how you had it described, but it's just like asking a lot of questions, letting the patient decide how they want to take it forward. And I felt like there were moments like that. I think maybe it was also like other smaller things like, searching for a condom or something, right? Like it was like these moments where I felt like you were trying to say like this should be the norm.
Yes.
And you're trying to like normalize this as like this is kind of like the like cultural expectation that we should have. So I don't know. There was just a macro comment for me. It just felt like there was a lot of that. And maybe the question is like, was that your message that you were trying to tell to us, to the reader, like that these sort of things like should be normalized and I don't know, expected.
I mean, I don't know if I like that's like a huge mission, but I do want to normalize talking about sexual boundaries. I do want to normalize what maybe an EMDR session might look like. I do want to normalize, prophylactics, like using condoms, having safe sex. I do want to normalize, being a hoe. If you want to be like, if you want to sleep around with a bunch of people and compare notes and have an Excel spreadsheet, you should, otherwise how can you keep track? I feel like I want to normalize a lot of things that maybe people don't do. Like, I don't know how many guys actually talk to each other about, their insecurities about their girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they shared a lot. Like, Akihiro told Daejung a lot about their sex life, right? And I don't know if...
to a point where...
I know women do, but I don't know dudes do.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, it was happening so much to the point where I felt like maybe there was even like a breach of trust, like in Akihiro's, trust and investment in the relationship to be kind of sharing so much. But yeah.
But I feel like women tell their friends a lot of details. So, we don't know who Katie told. Katie probably told Mina a lot. I think I wanted, I mean, it is a fantasy, right? Like, and I would like the fantasies to include safe sex and talks about boundaries. Because I don't know if we see examples of it enough. Because I feel like a lot of, not that this book is a romance, but I feel like in a lot of romance tropes, it actually romanticizes really toxic traits and really toxic relationships. So much that Akihiro and Katie would be the expected relationship. Right? And because Akihiro and Katie were really toxic together. Like their brokenness did not play well together. But maybe if they had met later, or I tried later.
Yeah, or like part of me thinks like, oh, if only like Akihiro had more life experience to kind of like see above himself, like take himself out of his like own personal situation and try to see like what's really going on in the bigger picture to then better help Katie,
But also, it's not his job.
Right.
It's not his responsibility. He has his own career. They're touring.
He's got a solo career.
Right? Like, can you imagine you're on tour and you're dealing with drama like this? Like, that's gotta suck. I would never want to be an idol, or like a relationship with somebody who is touring all the time. Like, that sounds terrible.
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe it just says like how vanilla I am as a person, but like, I don't know. And maybe this is just like more normalized nowadays. Like, but this dynamic between, how could I say this? Like more, I think the word like destroy or wreck was used in a lot of sex scenes, right? And then like there's that aspect, right? Like being like more, I don't know, borderline violent, maybe not actually violent, but like, how it's described and desired. And yet like, Katie herself having her own like very violent traumatic experience. And like, I think what I don't know, like what I was also just taking from that was just like, there's an aspect of desire and consent in that, the trauma and the sexual desires aren't necessarily connected. Like, I think like, I don't know, maybe because I'm like a very vanilla person reading into this, or maybe like, a lot of like Hollywood writing would try to make a more explicit connection between those things. Like, whereas here it felt like they were very deliberately separate things. But again, maybe that's me reading into like metaphors in terms of how they're describing what they want.
Yeah, I think it was more metaphorical.
Never mind then.
It's okay. But I mean, if you want to imagine it as more literal, that is okay too. As long as it's consensual, and it was consensual between them, these imaginary people. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like I was hearing your voice in a lot of the jokes. I feel like I was hearing Virginia.
Right. That's the benefit of us knowing you while reading this book, because I also have those moments of like, oh, there she is.
Oh, there's that snark.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else? Anything we didn't say that you want to say, put on the record, Virginia?
I think ultimately I want folks to be prepared when they go in, because I don't want to hurt people, because there are a lot of difficult themes. But I tend to like books that depict scary or hurtful things in a limited environment, if that makes sense, so that you can process these emotions in a safe space, if that makes so I feel like it for those, I don't know if listeners are familiar with like hurt comfort stories, but that's kind of the category it falls into. Like, people are hurt and you find comfort in their healing. So yeah, I think I want folks to like treat themselves gently as they read it, and also that they can feel comforted at the end, if that makes sense. Like, and also laugh along the way, I guess. It's not all horrible. I promise there are really funny parts. Like, I feel like Yejun is my favorite. He's such an idiot. He's so stupid. I love him so much because he's so dumb. And so flappy.
Yeah, he was my third, fourth male lead, but he had a girlfriend, so I was like, oh damn.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was funny at the end in the epilogue, like her children were like, what, like Asian parent fantasies or something. Like, what was it? Like a tax accountant, software developer. There's something else in there, but like, it was like, okay, Virginia.
And then,
Like,
and then Yejin's kids are like actuaries, which I find so stupid. And then they're like so disappointed that their children are so boring. And I don't know. I just thought it was really stupid. So I included it. I'm sorry. There's no real reason other than I just thought it was funny. Like it's just such a ridiculous, preposterous situation. Like, of course, Asian parents would be happy about this.
that's what it seemed like. It seemed like when I was reading it, I was like, okay, you just listed off what you want the Asian parents to want in their children, but
they're like creative. They're like, how dare you? So I don't know. It was like you had to end something like so heavy
Right,
with something a little bit ridiculous, I feel.
yeah. Oh, maybe. Sorry, another random question. How did you find time to write this? Like with like all your children and stuff.
So I ignore my children a lot. And also at the time I didn't have a baby. So I think I wrote the vast majority of this in 2021.
Oh, wow.
and part of
Okay. I didn't
2022.
realize. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I did a lot of editing end of last year and beginning of this year. So that was a lot harder because I had the baby. But it was around like 70,000 words at first, but it ballooned, or 75,000, and it ballooned to like 96,000 words because I had to fill in a lot of backstory. So I was like, oops, my bad. It was mostly Katie's story, and everyone's like, who are these dudes? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess they're important. Whatever. They're just window dressing. As they should be in life.
Let's hook up number
no
1,
offense,
number
Peter.
3, 4, and then 6, and then comes back to 3 again.
Yeah. So there's so I do include Easter eggs in every book where something always, like, no matter what timeline, these things always happen. So that's just a heads up for future books to see what are the things that are. I think there's like about 10 of them that always happen in every single book. So I'm just curious if Eagle Eyes can find them.
Challenge accepted.
Right?
Dun, dun, dun. Now you must collect them all.
Okay. Let our listeners know where they can find you. Grab your book and find your other upcoming novels. Anything else that you want to share there?
Oh, yeah. The second book, it's also standalone. You can read them in any order, or you don't have to read the other ones if you don't like to. It's called Waitlist, and it will be out, I think, in October. And it will be Katie, Jae-sung, and Daejun. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. I know. Michaela's face is great right now. So there's a preview of it on my website, virginiaduan.com. And you can follow me on the Twitters and Instagram at the Mandarin Mama or Virginia Duan _official. Oh, and you can buy my book on Amazon, ebook or
Or a lovely physical paperback copy. Hold it in your hands.
What's the best platform, like, where people can give you like the best like percentage of a kickback?
okay. It doesn't really matter. I
It's all
get
the
paid.
same.
I would prefer people. I would prefer people to choose the thing that they
Sorry,
want.
I'm not trying to get in trouble with your different editors. Or
Oh, no,
publishers or
it doesn't-
but-
No. I self-published. So I mean, I guess the ebook would technically give me more, but I like physical things, so I'm not going to discourage you from buying a book with such a pretty cover that my friend Joyce Clark made.
시간이 지나갈수록 더 망가져가